On today's episode of Empowering Women in Real Estate, the podcast, are you rethinking your team model? If so, start here.
Hi, I'm Karen Cooper, a wife, mom of three, real estate broker, team owner, and founder of Empowering Women in Real Estate. As a realtor, I've personally helped well over 700 families in my career, and now I help thousands of women from all across the country balance real life and real estate through daily inspiration, motivation, and actionable plans to increase their success. Listen in as I share stories and tips from my life and business and interview some of my favorite people.
Hi there, I'm glad you're here for today's episode. Today is, maybe a little different topic. I talk a lot about my team. You certainly hear me talk about my real estate team, the different things that we do, but I don't usually talk about it from the perspective of being a team leader and teaching and sharing from the perspective of being a team leader. And it's not that I don't want to. I don't know how to explain it. It actually, in fact, I even started a group about a year ago called the Team Leader Forum on Facebook, because I thought, having a private group specifically for team leaders would maybe feel easier to talk about it from the person. I guess I'm working this out while I'm recording this for you. I guess my hang up here maybe has been when I post, when I share, I don't like to alienate anyone. I think that in my content, in the podcast episodes that you hear here, even when some of the episodes are maybe specific, right? More specific to being in midlife, or we've done episodes on geographic farming or, different things, even if that topic or that season doesn't necessarily connect for you, I still feel like there's enough in there for anyone. And I think, and maybe this is a limiting belief on my part, but I feel like the team leader specific content is much more limiting. And it really is, if you are not a team leader, it will probably not be interesting to you and will probably not be relevant to you. And I think that's probably part of my hang up for maybe why I don't share about it sometimes or talk about it sometimes. And honestly, in transparency, there have been a couple of times where I have shared some things from the team leader's perspective that actually upset some of my team members. Now, I don't work with those folks anymore. So, maybe that was just a kind of a unique to that particular season. So that's kind of always in the back of my mind a little bit. But we're going to put all of that aside today, and we're going to talk specifically about running a team. And I'm recording it for you today specifically because this week is the week that we are celebrating 2 years of our national team expansion. We hired our first expansion agent who was in a state outside of my regional area 2 years ago. It'll be 2 years on Valentine's Day, on February 14th. And we've learned a lot. I've been a team leader now for, this will be year 11. We will celebrate my business partner, Vicki, and I celebrate our anniversary of our partnership on May 5th, but our team actually didn't launch until August or September of that year. But we always, kind of look at May 5th as our anniversary date. So this year, May 5th will be 11 years. So I've been a team leader for a long time, and I've learned a lot of things about what it looks like to be a team leader. And most specifically, what we're going to be talking about today is rethinking your model, changing your model. And we did that multiple times, really many times actually, throughout our history as a team. But they were I think a little bit more subtle. And then I would say probably about 3 years ago, 3 or so years ago, around the time that we moved our team no, it was a little before that. It was maybe 3.5. It was before Real was on our radar that we started making more, I don't want to say drastic, but more significant changes to our team model. And some of that was not all, especially before we made the shift to Real, a lot of those changes were made reactively. Those model shifts were made reactively to satisfy team members, based on, the market then was, we were coming off of a couple of years of like crazy good real estate, at least in my area, in my market. And so when that happens, agents start, reevaluating things. And so then of course we had to start reevaluating things, for the first 7 years of our team, we didn't have a cap. There was not a cap on what our team members would pay us. And suddenly we had to put in caps, had to institute caps. And when you do that, you can't do that without adjusting your services. And we didn't adjust our services. So now suddenly, we're making significantly less money, but still having all the same expenses. And so it took teams are always a struggle. It's a constant struggle with profitability. You have to be, you know, watching that. It's just hard. It's really hard to balance what comes in versus the cost of your services and your staff and all of those different things. And so we went through we went through a couple of years where it was bad. It was hard. We were always profitable, but like a tiny, 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 tiny bit. And so, some of that really caused us to open our minds. There was a period a few years ago where, Vicki and I would have conversations, and at any given time, one or both of us wanted to burn it down and run away at any given time. And it's not because we didn't love our team. It's not because we didn't love and appreciate and respect our team members. It's because it had gotten too hard. The weight had gotten too heavy. And it's such a balance between trying to keep your compensation plans reasonable and appropriate for your team members, while also providing an appropriate amount of services, while also making sure that your business can run profitably, because it is a business. And the thing is, when you run a team, it can be hard to have yourself in full-time production while you're doing that. So the team has to be profitable in order for it to work, because it is a second full-time job. And so we really went through a period that was really very challenging. And there was even a point where we had, kind of like brainstormed to like, okay, we're shutting her down in 3 years. And I'm very happy to say that we're definitely not there anymore. And with some of the changes that we have made and the shifts that we have made, which I'll share on today's episode, I could do this easily for another 10 or 15 years, easily. And that's saying something. That's really saying something. It took a while. And so, the benefit of that is, it makes your team much more sustainable. And that's a good thing, right? I mean, nobody wants to, shutter their business and close their doors. And so, your choices, and this is true for all kinds of businesses. And even if you're a solo agent listening to this, it's even true there. Like, things change in the industry. Things change in your business, things change in your life, which impact your business and your time and capacity and energy levels and all of those things. And if you are unwilling to make changes, and if you are unwilling to call it evolve, call it, whatever term you want, But if you're unwilling to do that, then there's probably going to come a point where you can't do it anymore and you just quit. And so, the choice is evolve or give it all up. And you've worked way too hard. It is way too hard. It is so hard to have a team, and it is way too hard to build something and then just shut it down because you're not willing to be open and you're not willing to shift some things. So let's just jump in. And this may end up bouncing all over the place because I have a lot of I have a lot of things that I want to kind of capture here on this episode today. So, I guess, what I would say to you is if running your team is feeling more draining than fulfilling to you, not that it might be time, it is time for you to rethink how your team works, not whether or not you're cut out for leadership. It's more than likely not a leadership issue. It is more an issue of your model and your structure. We have a team of, we're an all-woman team. We always have been. Right now, there are 65 agents on our team. We are in 20 different states. We are on our countdown to 2 billion in sales volume since the inception of our team, which our goal is, and we will most likely hit it at the end of 2026. So we do a lot of business, and you don't want to just turn off something like that. It's better to rethink how it works. And if you're in that spot too, I want to encourage you. I want to encourage you with that and just let you know that if you're feeling the weight of the responsibility and the expenses and the pressure, and maybe you're experiencing some profitability struggles, just know that there are options out there. There are better ways forward. There are more sustainable ways forward. And I'm hoping that this episode today is going to be an eye opener for you that's going to help you with that. So let's jump in to a whole bunch of things that I have for you today. And so there does come a point where your model will stop working, and it will stop working for a variety of different reasons. It might stop working because of success, because you have achieved so much success and your team has grown, and you've done so much to such a degree that the model doesn't work anymore. We definitely hit that point with our team multiple different times. And unfortunately, the answer for us many times, every time we kind of hit that, is we hired more people. We hired more people. We hired more people. And I don't mean agents, I mean staff. There was a point in time where we had 6 or 7 full-time staff members. I mean, that's a lot. That's heavy. And that was, and really what we should have been doing then, instead of constantly looking at, hiring, and some of the hires that we made just weren't effective. And it's not that the people weren't effective, it's that the position wasn't effective. Like it didn't really cut to the heart of what we needed. And we really did need to rework the model at those junctures, but we just didn't know. And we didn't have enough exposure to conversations like this, to other teams that were, doing more than we are, or more than we were. At our former brokerage, we were number one basically forever. And so we just didn't have exposure to other ways of thinking and other ways of doing things. And so we just didn't know. We thought we just needed to hire more people. And that was not the solution. And so sometimes your model stops working because of the success that you are experiencing. Sometimes your model stops working because of just fluctuations with the market. That we had a point with that too, which I already kind of described, where the market was so hot, so good. So then you get to a point where you have agents who are like, wait, whoa, like I'm paying you way too much. And so then you start making shifts like we did, putting in caps, which is fine. And we've had caps now ever since that day. But what we didn't do when we instituted those caps is we didn't take away any services. We didn't adjust anything. So we still had all the same expenses, but without the income, right, coming in. And so that was a time that we really needed to make a shift, but we didn't quite understand it. We did part of it, but not all of it. So sometimes your need to when your model stops working, it's because the market has shifted, right? That some things have changed like that within the industry. Commission compression is one of those things. You don't see that not just from, what a buyer or a seller is willing to pay you, but what an agent is willing to pay you as a team leader or as a brokerage owner. And so you feel that sometimes your model stops working just because of where you are in your life. I mean, my business partner and I both turn 53 this year. And, we're kind of at that point in our life where you really start to evaluate things. And it's not that we want to retire. Like, I don't, and we both have this conversation. I don't think we ever want to retire. Like we genuinely enjoy working. We genuinely enjoy what we do. But in order to be able to do it long term, in order to be able to do it sustainably, things have to change and things have to shift. And so, it could be that your model doesn't work anymore, just kind of based on where you are in your life. And none of this is a weakness or a failure. It's just the reality, right? So if you're feeling this, just know that you're not alone in this. I do talk to a lot of team leaders that express a lot of the same concerns and a lot of the same things. When you talk about the reality of what it means to have a team and to be a team leader, teams are very complex, and it's not as simple as just, if I told you the amount of time that we spent trying to figure out our compensation plan, we probably spent 3 months going back and forth and around on the numbers and the splits and the services. It's complex. And then as time went on, those things would shift. And I keep using the word complex, but it really is complex. It can be hard. We've gotten to this point now where that is basically where we are, but it can be hard to have, like one model that fits for everyone within your team. They were, for the majority of our time as a team, we would have 5 and 6 different compensation plans based on production levels. And every bit of the, like, there's so much complexity there. Well, do team leads count towards that, or do they not count towards that? And how often do you review it? And there's just a lot of complexity that happens with all those things. Teams are emotionally heavy. I think especially when you run a team like we do, our team is kind of like, we call it our team family. Like these are our people. And so there is definitely a heaviness that comes with that, because, when this one's having a hard time, right? Personally or professionally, you feel it, and you feel that weight, and you feel that pressure. There's a lot of stuff that happens there. Anytime you are responsible for the salaries of other people, there is a heaviness there. And, now, we've been able to adjust our team so that it is infinitely more manageable from a staffing perspective. But even still, we're responsible for these people, and the livelihood of these people and their families depends on us. So, there's a weight there that happens. The reality of a lot of teams is that profit margins are often thin, and a lot thinner than what is often expected and what you think, because it does affect how much time you have to put into other money-making endeavors, right? It does affect how much time you personally have to generate business. It does affect how much time that you personally have to do your own production if you're still in production. It is a full-time job, and sometimes there isn't enough to support a full-time salary for you in that business, if that is the only business that you have. And so that can be a challenge. And just, the fluctuation of our real estate businesses, think about it. If you're a solo agent, all of us, our businesses fluctuate, right? And if it's just you, and maybe you have one assistant, or, maybe you choose to use a transaction coordinator or whatever, if you don't have a lot of transactions, if you don't have a lot in your pipeline, that it's certainly very stressful, and you feel that weight. But imagine that, 4 and 5 times that from an expense perspective. And that can be a challenge. The responsibility of being a leader, especially I think with some models, and our model was like this for a long time. And I think partly it comes from what we learned and how we started is doesn't turn off. It is a 24/7, and that's hard. That's really difficult. And then, a lot of times I think, and we certainly felt this way, and my partner and I would, we would fight. There was a season where we fought about this, where you are kind of stuck in this place between loyalty and sustainability, right? Loyalty to keep things for your team, because people don't like change. Inherently, people do not like change. And so there's this tension between the loyalty of not wanting to upset the apple cart or change things for your team, but yet also the sustainability of knowing that if you don't make changes, you're not going to have a team. And if you don't make changes, you're not going to be able to continue to do what you do and continue to, enjoy the business that you've built. And that's hard. I mean, that is a hard spot to be in. I think a lot of team leaders find themselves in that position at one point or another. So we've never been the traditional team. From day one, we always wanted to be different. We wanted to be a place where people could come and grow with us, and that has held true. We've had many agents that have been with us, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, literally years, literally the entire time that we have been in business. And so that's been great. From the beginning, we wanted our team members to have independence in terms of doing business in their own name. We provide a lot from a marketing perspective. And earlier on, there was less flexibility with branding. Agents had to use our brand, but still everybody was using their own name. And so there was still some flexibility there. And so from the beginning, we really kind of always wanted something a little bit different. We've always been a little bit more entrepreneurial focused, and we've had trainings and things where we've talked about, investing in real estate, and many of our team members are investors too, like Vicki and I are, and that's been great. But there was a lot of time of our team, probably, 7, 8 years of our team that was very heavy from a responsibility, from an expense, just from and I hate to use the word hands-on, but from a kind of a hands-on perspective, it was very high touch. Now, that's not to say that we're not, gosh, that's kind of hard to explain, but it was much more babysitting is the word that comes to mind, but that's not it, because, our team members have always been capable, confident, driven businesswomen that we have great respect for. But there was just kind of a different level of, if you could see me, you could see I'm kind of, what I'm doing with my hands, but there was just a different level of just kind of holding it all together for people versus, them having the independence to hold it together for themselves. And so 2 years ago, we did the expansion nationally. And it came from, well, I guess I should back up a little bit before that. So really, it was 3 years ago when we made the move to Real. That was the first, I shouldn't say the first, because we have made other kind of shifts with our model, but that was a significant model change. We gave everyone a raise, basically. We gave all of our team members a raise in terms of their splits, because we knew that they were going to have to pay a cap to the brokerage. Now, because of the size team we are, the cap is very small. The cap that our team members pay is only $4,000 to the brokerage. So it's not a lot, but we wanted to make sure that our team members were whole. And so we gave everybody a raise. We adjusted our compensation plan to make up for that. That was the first time also that we made any services changes. And what we did when we did that is we basically eliminated all of our in-person events, client events, except for one. Prior to that time, we were doing, at one point, I think we were doing 3 or 4 big in-person client events with hundreds of people every year. And they were super expensive. And I don't know that they were honestly that effective, because when you have that many people, what we started seeing, the trend that we started seeing, is that more and more of our team members were doing their own little mini events, their own little small events. And so when we made that shift and we gave everybody the raise, basically the compensation plan increase, we took away, that was the first time that we'd ever taken anything away. And so we backed down to just doing one event, one client event a year, which is our pie event. And then that freed up income for each of our team members so that then they could plan and do their own little small events, and many do, they get together and do their own. We also eliminated our big team retreat, and that one didn't go down easy. That one, we had done that for every year of our team except for the first one. The first year we just did like it wasn't an overnight, but after that first year we did an overnight, and just like everything else, the retreats got bigger and more intense and more expensive. By the end, the last, many years, we were doing 3 nights away at, multi-million dollar beach houses, oceanfront. Even with sponsors, those events were like $15,000. And it was a lot. It was a lot of content. It was a lot of organization, bringing in food and stocking the houses. And, think about what you need to do to stock a house for your family for a vacation. Well, now you're going to stock it for 30 people. It was a lot. And so we no longer do those big away retreats. That time has passed. We do different things. We do team advance, we do big mid-years. But we shifted that. And then 2 years ago, we finally did our national expansion. And that was really the start of getting to where we are now, which feels very good. It feels very settled. It feels very stable. The responsibility level all the way around, financially, emotionally, is completely different. Like I said, I could do this for another 15 years. And if you had asked me, 2 years ago or 3 years ago, I would have told you I don't have much time left at this. And so it has completely changed, because of the willingness to do this expansion. If you're listening to this and thinking, I know what I should be doing, I just need a clear plan and follow through, I want to tell you about the Empowering Women in Real Estate Inner Circle. This is not a mindset membership, it's tactical. Inside the Inner Circle, I teach my exact real estate systems, the same ones my team and I have used for more than a decade to build consistent referral-based businesses. We cover how to generate business through your database, geographic farming, social media, and relationship-based prospecting, right down to the templates, scripts, and workflows. Every week, you get a plan of the week that tells you exactly what to do step by step, so you're never guessing what matters most. You also get access to the high-level monthly trainings I do for my real estate team, a dedicated monthly mastermind, quarterly business reviews, and annual business planning. If you're done piecing things together and want a proven system you can actually follow, the Inner Circle was built for you. You can learn more at empoweringwomeninrealestate.com, click on Inner Circle, and when you use promo code First Month Free, you'll get your first month of the program on me. And when you do an expansion like this, it does kind of magnify everything. It magnifies the quality of your systems, cracks in your systems, cracks in your relationships, cracks in your team. It magnifies people issues, whether it is team members or staff members. It magnifies finance situations. It really kind of puts a spotlight on a lot of different things. And what we've learned is that, obviously what works locally doesn't always work at scale. It's hard to take what you do locally and do that, for agents that are hundreds of miles away from you. And so each step has to kind of be done with some intentionality and being clear on, kind of the vision and the purpose. And I'll tell you, when we first did this, and obviously this is not for everyone, expanding our team beyond our our, kind of local regional level. We've always had agents licensed in multiple states just because of where we're located. Where I'm in Northern Virginia. We're about an hour or so, I am anyway, from Washington, D.C. And so we're very close to parts of Maryland, parts of D.C., parts of West Virginia. So we've had agents licensed in those areas. So we've always kind of been a little bit of a regional team. But now we have agents in, Texas, and Florida, and California, and Washington State, and Pennsylvania, and, Indiana, and, 20 different states. And we always wanted to do that. We had wanted to do that for many, many years, long before we ever moved to Rio, long before we ever left our last brokerage, probably for 6 years. We talked about it. We tried to figure out how to do it. Because of the community that I've built with Empowering Women in Real Estate, we have a lot of opportunities. There are more than 40,000 women in the real estate industry that are part of our community. And so we have a lot of women that we've built relationships with from all across the country that would want to work with us, and we would want to work with them. And we couldn't figure out how to make that work. And so finally, 2 years ago, when we started very seriously figuring out what we were going to do with this national team and how we could do it. It was a couple of months of, just trying to figure it out. And it's funny, I remember it was, almost just like when we started our team in the beginning, it was trying to figure out what that compensation plan is going to look like. And, what are the services? There are services that I can offer to our agents that are local to us that I can't offer to somebody who's in Texas. And so how do you do that? And then how do you account for that from a financial perspective? So there were just a lot of different elements. And I remember I would have conversations. It was a period of time, and we've done this every time we've done any kind of a model shift with our team. I mean, I remember one time we had like a team A and a team B. I mean, that didn't last long, but like one conversation with one agent, I think, and we realized just how ridiculous that was. But the same thing with this, like there were a couple of calls that I had with agents when I hate to say testing, but like kind of trying this out. And I realized almost as soon as I started trying to talk out loud about what we thought was going to work, how it didn't work. So it takes a little bit of time to figure that out. And we definitely learned a lot of things with this expansion. And I would say the biggest mistake that I believe firmly that we made is we tried to keep our national team and our local team separate. And that right there, just saying it out loud, it seems so obvious to me, but a team and a team leader, what you do is you bring people together. You don't separate them. You don't try to keep them separate. And for some reason, I think probably out of comfort and probably out of trying to, again, keep from upsetting the apple cart, that was what we tried to do. And it was not good. That did not work. And it caused a lot of confusion, and it caused a lot of discontent. And I do regret that we worded it that way, that we did it that way. We are one team. We are literally one team, and we have two service levels within our team. One of them is a full service level, which is available to agents that are local to us in the state of Virginia. And then there is another level that is what we call our national service level. And that is available to agents who are anywhere. They can be local, they can be in Virginia, or they can be hundreds of miles away. And so that's it. It's one team, two service levels. And then we have a couple compensation plan options within those service levels. And so I wish that we had been more clear about that from the get-go. That was the one, so if you're doing something like this, that is my advice to you. But from here, it took a while. It really honestly took a year to settle, to, fully work out the kinks. And there were a couple of changes that we made to the compensation plan and to the service levels within that first year as we realized different things, either from an operations perspective or from a profitability perspective. Like there were things that we learned and that we adjusted. And some of that is the same as when we started our team in the first place. Some of those things you can't learn, you won't know and fully understand until you get started. Like you just won't. And so you almost just have to move forward in faith and pay attention and just don't be afraid to tweak and to make adjustments. And so, I don't regret in any way. In fact, I hate to say I wish we did it a long time ago, but we had to be in the right place. We had to be at the right brokerage to enable this for us. I am only a licensed broker in Virginia because of the way our brokerage works, because of the model. We can have agents on our team. And this is not, I was talking to somebody the other day who was at a cloud-based brokerage, and I think she just kind of assumed that when I was talking about this with my team, that I was talking about like my network, right? Like my downline of agents that I've sponsored. No, this is my actual real estate team. It is the same real estate team that, we started almost 11 years ago. That's what this is. And it is a true team. But because of the way things are at our brokerage, I don't have to be licensed in every state in order to make this work. And so what we have done is we have founding agent partners. So as we bring on a state, we have a founding agent partner in that state who, as we say, kind of opens it for us. And they are, kind of the face as we get started in promoting and growing in that area. And then as time goes, we actually will end up having often more than one founding agent partner in a state because it's kind of regional. Like when I think about Florida, we have a couple of agents. We have several agents there actually, and we have two founding agent partners because they're at opposite ends of the state. And so you kind of need that because the hope and the idea is that as the team grows, right, as we're able to bring agents in who are joining the team in that area, then those team members become the sponsors for those agents to our brokerage. So that gives a financial benefit to that founding agent partner, to that agent there. But then they're also kind of bringing the people together. Like our agents in Texas, they are close to each other geographically. And so often when it comes time for our monthly mastermind or team meeting or team training, they will often sit together. They'll meet up together at one of their homes to participate in the training. And so that's what we want from our founding agent partners. And so that's kind of the vision. I mean, right now, obviously our largest concentration is in Virginia. In our other states, we, may just have a couple, two, three. I think three is the most that we have in any state. So, these are small but mighty groups that are, in time starting to grow. And that's been working. You also, when you do this, you have to make sure we made it so that all of our masterminds, our meetings, our trainings, everything is available to everyone, which means Zoom. For our team meetings, we do a combination of in-person and Zoom. So the people who are local can come together in person, and then we will live stream it. We use something called the OWL, which basically, if you've got people that are online and also in the room, it's hard to describe it, like spins around and like follows the speaker. So it's a much better experience for the people who are online to participate in. And in fact, we actually used that. We had that before we ever even expanded, because we had agents. This was again when we were trying to make everybody happy. The owl is about $1,000. At least it was when we bought it, I don't know, 3.5 years ago. We had people that were, about an hour away from us and were kind of complaining about coming to our meetings and trainings. And so we were like, okay, great. You know what? We're going to make an option for you to live stream this for you. And then of course, very soon after, nobody wanted to watch on live stream. They only wanted to come in person. But that is kind of what happened. So we're very organized. We're very structured with our team. We have calendars planned out a year in advance. We've really integrated now everything to the point where every team member can participate in everything that we do. I would say about 95%. There are, obviously when we do a big mid-year, some of those bigger meetings, we do live stream them, but it's a different experience, than if you're not in the room. For our team advance, same thing. We try to put it in conjunction with the annual Empowering Women Real Estate Conference. So it's more of a multi-day event for our team members that are traveling to us. So it can kind of make it more worth it than just coming for one day. But when we do like a fun activity, a fun event, for last year for the second time, we hosted at my home. We call it our tiki and tacos pool party. My husband has the best time cooking for everybody and making cocktails for everybody. But obviously you have to be here in order to participate in that. Right now, our full service level is only available to agents in Virginia. We have talked about expanding that. We have talked about offering that to agents in different states, and we've started kind of looking at it and talking to our support team to see how that could work. And so it's possible that we are going to be offering that to anyone. And so when we do, then that means, of course, that will really limit significantly the things that aren't available to everyone, depending on where they're located. But it works. Our motto is be in business for yourself, not by yourself. So we really do solve that collaboration issue. We let go of our ego, and that's hard for us in real estate. But we let go of our ego in that our team members don't have to use our team branding anymore. Now, you do if you're on our full service level, and there's a reason for that. And that's an efficiency reason. It has to do with our support team and what they have to do. But if you are not full service, most of our team members are on our national service level. It's up to you whether or not you use our branding. And so there is a little bit of a letting go of an ego there, right? Because there are signs and there are, listings and things out there that don't say Platinum Group. But that doesn't mean that they're not Platinum Group. But it's not about Platinum Group. It's about providing care and service to our team members so that they can provide a high level of care and service to their clients. And so at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whose name is on it. That's a real evolution in terms of, sort of how we've come to this point. And that mindset may or may not be right for you, for your team. But it works for us. It works for us, especially with the national. We've had this same thing for quite a few years, because there are some states, like Maryland, for example, is one, or West Virginia is one, Maryland in particular, but there's certain rules in order to market yourself as a team that would require me or my partner being licensed there. I think you have to do either a certain number of sales or a certain number of years in business. And so, that's never been worth it to us to do that in order just to have a sign that says Platinum Group. So that's not too far, like that wasn't too foreign for us, because, in Texas, our team members, it's their choice. We did have a team member who wanted to use our branding. And so it was very easy. There was a 1-page form that we had to fill out and submit. We did that, and she was able to do that. So that's just something to kind of think about. But again, it's just kind of that openness to do something different and to be easy. Because of how we are structured now, our staffing is greatly reduced. From a team perspective, we have 2 full-time employees. One is a virtual assistant. Her role is really strictly just around team member onboarding and tracking numbers and reporting. And then we have our director of marketing and operations who handles all of our marketing materials. And she's been with us literally since the very beginning. And so she, there's a lot of kind of things that she manages. But from our real estate team perspective, there's one other employee that we have for empowering women in real estate. But from a real estate team perspective, that's it. And so that's a huge shift from what things used to look like from our team, which frees up a lot of things. Because we've been able to let go of a lot of those really expensive things with the client events and the retreats and just a lot of that kind of stuff. And we've shifted to being available more nationally. Then it has reduced a lot of those expenses and commitments. And that's really what makes this so sustainable, because we don't have that pressure for the massive amount of monthly obligations. There's still a lot of obligations, don't get me wrong, but it's significantly reduced. And especially I think for a team our size, it's very little compared to, what I think a lot of people end up stuck with when you have a team of this size that does this much business. So, we systematize as much as we can. We try to look for efficiencies as much as we can. Our motto for our team is be in business for yourself, not by yourself. And that really There is an independence factor with our team, and where our agents are truly like, this is their business. We are here to support them. We are here to provide training, to provide guidance, to provide mentorship, to provide collaboration, to provide opportunities. And we do all of those things, but the energy is completely different from what the energy on our team looked like, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. I mean, it is completely different. And so because of that, our team members have a lot of flexibility. They can run their business in a way that makes sense for them. They have their people. And then for us as team leaders, it frees up a lot for us in terms of, time for creativity. There's things that we're able to do now that we couldn't do before. And so that's really amazing. So, I probably should do more episodes like this so that they don't have to be this long, because this is a long one. But just a couple little things, that's the kind of the idea behind our team. And I'm happy anybody who really wants to dig in deep on, what that expansion looks like and the steps and, how we do our structure. I am more than happy to share. I've shared with anybody who's asked, so there's no issue there. Message me on Instagram. That's a great way to connect with me. I'm at Karen.w.Cooper. Just a couple of little things to sort of wrap this all up is, I think that there is a lie that we believe as team leaders, and this happened to us, that if you change your model, you're letting people down, or, I committed to this, so I have to see it through. And, the thing is, committing to it, yes, you did commit to having a team, and you did commit to creating a team, and you do want to see that through, but that doesn't mean that you have to see it through exactly the way that it was on day one. Because in fact, it's going to be really hard to hold that commitment and to see it through without making some changes when they're needed, without making some shifts when they're needed. And, whether it's big shifts or small shifts, like that is just what happens. Because the truth is, and any team leader will know this, we tend to, and we have fallen into this many, many times, where we would make changes in our model for our team based on a request, a complaint, a something from one person. And then, 3, 6, 12 months later, something happens in that person's life, something changes, and they move on. And that's going to happen. Your team members are going to make the decisions that make sense for them. And sometimes that means moving on. And that will happen without a thought, right? What about the commitment they made to you, right? But that happens without a thought because they need to do what's best for them. And guess what? So do you. You need to do what's best for you. Because ultimately, when you do what's best for you, when you're doing what's best overall for the business, then ultimately that is going to be what's best for your team members. And sure, it's not always going to be right for certain people, and that's okay. And we're not for everyone, and that's okay. But changing the model is what is going to allow you to continue to serve for a much longer term. And so just a couple of things for you to kind of think about if you're in this spot where you are struggling and not sure what to do. I would encourage you, just to kind of do a couple exercises, a couple little questions for you to ponder, right? Like, think about, this is the pressure audit is something that we do in the Midlife Real Estate Blueprint, and it kind of applies here too. But basically, like, what are the parts of your team that feel the heaviest? Like, think about, and you can even do the exercise, right? Take a piece of paper, and on one side of the paper, you write, things that give you energy or things that you like to do. And then on the other side, write things that drain your energy or things that you don't like to do. And then as you go throughout your day, just, for a couple of days, jot down everything. Every time you do something, jot it down in either one of those categories. And so it becomes really clear what parts are working and what parts are not working. And so once you can get a little bit of clarity there, then you can start figuring out, okay, how can I change this? What am I holding on to out of guilt because I feel like I have to? What would a lighter version of this look like, right? If I've got these 5 things that are really just not working for me, what would a lighter version, like how could you back that down just a step? or 2 steps or 3 steps. And then, kind of figure out what is it that needs to change first. Is it your structure? Is it the expectations with your team members? Or is it you? And sometimes it's actually you. And sometimes even when you are in the midst of a model shift, it's you that has to really wrap your head around the changes. And, it's not always easy. It wasn't easy to start a team. It's not as easy to keep a team running. It's not easy to shift your model. But ultimately, it's in having the courage to do those things that's going to allow you to continue and going to allow you to serve more agents and allow you to serve more clients and allow you to keep your business going. And so it's worth it. It's worth it. I can tell you now, 2 years past our national expansion, which was our biggest team shift, I love my business more now than I have in years. I mean, I'm happier in my business. I'm happier in what I do more than I have been literally in years. And, there was a period of time where I thought the problem was my team. And the problem wasn't the fact that I had a team. The problem was that my team model didn't work anymore. That was the problem. And so now that I have solved that, at least for now, if I've learned anything after all these years, it's that things will constantly shift and change. But if I have learned anything, right now, it's good. Right now, it's good. And so we're going to take that. We're going to take that win. So thank you for listening. I hope that this was a helpful episode to you. If you want to hear more episodes like this, message me, let me know, tell me your thoughts. And until next time, stay well.
Thank you for listening to Empowering Women in Real Estate, the podcast. Click subscribe to be notified every Wednesday when our latest episode is released, and be sure to check out our group on Facebook.